When Samsung released its latest folding phone, the Galaxy Z Fold 7 in July, some said the era of the folding smartphone had arrived.
If you are in the market for a foldable, this is a really, really good buy.
You guys know I'm an Apple girly, but this phone is literally making me so excited to learn new things and go into a whole nother world. And honestly, Z Fold 7, you are perfect.
We just had our launch of our Galaxy Fold 7 and Galaxy Flip 7, and the demand has been incredible. We broke pre-order records with our Fold device, for example, and I think it's really showing that consumers are gravitating towards that foldable form factor. We've built in more and more innovation to where these are now mainstream devices that consumers are opting for over traditional bar-type phones.
This next generation of folding phones entered the market in 2018 with the release of the Royal Flex Pi, followed in 2019 by Samsung Galaxy Fold. Google followed with the Pixel Fold, Motorola revived the Razr, Chinese brands like Huawei and Xiaomi pushed designs to be thinner and lighter. Even Nokia has re-entered the flip phone space, adding modern features like apps. Now, Apple is reportedly expected to join the foldable race in 2026.
This is not a new idea that Apple might do it, but it seems like they're closer than ever to actually making it happen. The plan is for them to do this in fall of 2026 and have their answer to it.
But even with more brands in the game, foldables are still far from mainstream.
At the moment, there's very little reasons for most people to replace their phones. So the reason to upgrade, it needs to be something that is really different from what we have today in our pockets. And that's where the foldables can become the proposition for end users to upgrade.
So why are tech companies doubling down, and why might Apple make its move now? In the early 2000s, flip phones were the phones to have. Then the BlackBerry arrived, and in 2007, the iPhone redefined the smartphone.
How are we going to take this to a mobile device? Well, what we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen. A giant screen.
That really was the modern take on the smartphones. You know, the full touch screen, no physical buttons or no physical keyboard. That really started in 2007. And it took several years for competitors to really catch up to what the iPhone was doing. Google, of course, put out Android a couple years later, but it wasn't until 3 or 4 years after the original iPhone launch that you could kind of say Android and other devices were on par with what Apple was offering with the iPhone.
Fast forward to 2019, Samsung launched the first Galaxy Fold. It was a breakthrough, but durability was a problem.
It was not as durable as it is now from a screen perspective. The other one was the design of the actual the crease of the hinge itself allowed for some debris and dust to go under the screen, which impacted durability. But, you know, as a first of its kind, I think is one of those things that it's just teething problems.
Early on with any new innovation, there's naturally trade-offs where there's this great new innovation, but you might be foregoing other things along the way. And I think this year in particular, we've really overcome all of those barriers. This year, it's at 8.9 millimeters slim, so that's close to the thickness of just one of our standard flagship phones, and it unfolds into a large format experience. Same with our flip device. In the past, people said that they'd like to see more flagship size battery life, for example. And this year we increased the battery life, so it's on par with any of our flagships in terms of battery life.
Today in the US, there are roughly 8 to 10 current models available, including devices from Samsung, Motorola, Google, and OnePlus. And Google just released a teaser of its latest Pixel 10 Pro Fold. But they still make up less than 2% of global smartphone shipments in 2024. Price is another hurdle. Many models cost between $1,500 and $2,000.
The price is at the high end of the smartphone market and creates a niche market in terms of volume. Now, what can change that? I don't think there's been that much progress made on that front to make it mass market yet, but what you do need to happen is prices need to come down over time.
Apple's debut is reportedly set for 2026.
a very, very thin smartphone now with today's technology. And if the foldable devices get better, they can make the screens bigger on the front. So a lot of more pieces are in place right now if Apple wanted to do it. But again, there's no guarantee.
It's never been about trying to be the first to market. It's being about watchful, seeing a technology mature, knowing that there are no big roadblocks to that technology adoption, and then sort of moving ahead and creating a differentiation more on the user experience. And that's what Apple is really focused on doing, is, as we talked about the technology hurdles that were seen initially, both on the user experience side as well as the longevity of the device.
The Apple device could be a book-style iPhone with a 7.8-inch crease inner display and a reinforced hinge, all aimed at improving durability and usability, according to a TF International analyst Ming Chi Kuo.
Entering now, I think, is a function of, the improvements in the durability. There's been a lot of compromise for the thickness, the durability, and the screen, the camera specs and so forth. And Samsung, I think, finally with the 7s, which just launched last month in July, has finally reduced the compromise.
One of the challenges you had in the early days is you would buy a foldable phone and it would last you probably only 1 or 2 years. I think even if you go today and look at what the general perception is of the foldable devices, they're expected that if you buy one today, you're probably going to use it for 3-4 years, because there's a certain amount of folds that these screens can take.
If Apple can solve for both durability and usability, it could help expand foldables beyond a niche luxury and into the mainstream. Samsung and Huawei have been the global leaders in folding smartphones the past few years, but it's expected that Apple could quickly take a large market share with the release of its folding phone. Apple declined our request for comment. Samsung and Google pitch foldables as AI-first devices. Large screens allow for better multitasking, more immersive tools, and easier content creation.
I do think that AI and the foldable form factor really go well together. AI is taking away some of the friction that we feel using a phone, and so having that larger screen is going to help us bring to life more use cases that are linked to getting work done, whatever work that is. It could be productivity, but it's also a lot of creativity.
The AI use cases are tailored for each of the unique form factors. So on Fold, for example, we're opening to large format display. Through our partnership with Google and Circle to Search, that brought to the large screen format where you can continue to see the screen that you've circled and get the information to the side of that, so you can have a more productive experience going back and forth between what you're looking at and engaging with the information.
But challenges remain. Higher prices than standard iPhones, complex engineering, and the perception that foldables are still for a niche audience. Adoption is higher in markets like China and South Korea, where they're far more common than in the US.
If you look at the market today, it's about 19-20 million units annually, has been roughly at that for the last couple of years. And keep in mind, this is a 1 billion plus sort of smartphone market. So it's a pretty niche part of the smartphone market, and a niche part even of the premium smartphone market itself.
It's a niche market that's stabilizing, that's improving in the quality of the phones. But I've always said, the team and I have always discussed, like, the foldable form factor is inevitable, we think, longer term. It's just the price premium needs to be in the 10 to 20% range relative to a normal phone. And there's been a really large price premium and a lot of compromise on functionality. So we're getting rid of the compromise on functionality. It's just, what's the premium the market's willing to pay to essentially turn an iPhone 16 Pro Max into an iPad mini.
But Samsung says prices are starting to come down with models like the Flip 7 FE launching under $1,000, and expects that trend to continue as the technology matures.
Flip FE launched with Flip and Fold 7, and it's actually at a price point under $1,000. It's $899 as the price point there. So you're already starting to see that curve come down in terms of what a more accessible price point for foldable looks like. And I think, again, over time, as the technology matures, you'll certainly see more of that.
If Apple can turn foldables into a mass market product, it could reshape the smartphone industry.
Well, on paper, foldable phones sound great, right? The idea that instead of going out there and buying a tablet for $500 to $1,000 and then another $1,000 phone, you can just have one device that does it all. It's a phone when you need it to be. then you can unpack it to watch a movie or unfold it to do more work or things like that. So just the idea of having one hybrid device instead of carrying two around, that's the pitch right there.